Welcome to Stuart and Clive, the Chair and Vice Chair of the IOSH Public Services Group. Thank you for joining us to provide valuable insights about the public services industry. This quickfire interview is for those who are just starting out in their safety and health careers or who might be looking for a career change. I'm Kessie, a member of the IOSH Future Leaders Community Steering Group, and I will now ask a few questions to provide that insight. So we'll start with Stuart. What made you choose to work in the public sector?
Well, Kessie, it's always been the variety of work that's in the public sector that's interested me. So even back at school days, I did some work experiences in environmental health. So that's where I started out my career. I was an environmental health officer doing a wide variety of inspections and advisory visits, food hygiene, licensing, and part of it was investigating accidents and doing health and safety advice. And that led to more specialist role in environmental health on health and safety. And from there into a health and safety advisor manager roles in a variety of councils. And in the current role, I head a shared service where I'm also head of 2 councils' health and safety teams, and no 2 days are the same. So that's what really attracted me. You'd be doing asbestos 1 minute and then you could be doing something completely different the next. And I find that I thrive on that.
Well, thank you. And how about you, Clive?
Well, I transferred into health and safety after working in the working at a university in science and engineering, and I wanted a new challenge. So I was an advisor in the School of Engineering and basically wanted to progress my career, which meant I had to move to somewhere else. And fortunately for me, a job came up at the local county council, which was only 10 minutes away rather than an hour. So commuting came into it as well.
Oh, brilliant, thank you. And Clive, what kind of safety areas or issues would an OSH professional expect to find in the public services?
Public services are really quite diverse. Some have got a very narrow focus, somebody like the police, border force, something like that. Whereas local authorities have a much wider role in delivering services to the public. So, for example, district councils have a lot more manual workers delivering things like waste services, parks and gardens, that sort of thing. County councils have education, social care, and a lot more besides, looking after the local road infrastructure. So basically, there's a lot to go at. And as Stuart said earlier, you don't know what you're dealing with from one moment to the next. But for me, when I was working, because I'm retired now, the main issue was violence and aggression.
Oh, wow.
Which I think is common to all public services, really. And the other ones were lone working, stress and asbestos, because obviously local authorities and other public bodies have a large number of old buildings. Don't know if Stuart's got anything to add to that.
Yeah, as Clive says, violence and aggression, I think certainly in councils, we've seen particular challenges in, say, social care sector now. It's always been a little bit of issue on the enforcement side, and as me environmental health days, it was something you come across time to again. But certainly in social care and some of our frontline people, whether working in housing and hostels and things, it's something they face on a day-to-day basis. And there's been some real national campaigns around even refuse collectors where people are driving their vans at them because they're in the road trying to collect their waste. So we do have some challenges across the public sector, but you certainly, for future leaders who are interested in it, you won't find the job dull.
That's for sure.
Very reassuring. That's great. And Stuart, what's been your proudest moment working within your industry?
Well, we've talked about the diversity we get
Mm.
involved. A few years ago, I was part of the safety team on the Tall Ships event in Hartlepool. So this was an event for a relatively smallish town. That was the Tall Ships races are basically masted frigates coming into the harbour. And we were planning for 1 million people to visit the town over a 4-day period. So when
Oh,
you've got
wow.
100,000 people that are expected to turn up, and you think about the risk assessments and planning for the event, and it was well out of the comfort zone. There was some specialists on the team that I learned an awful lot from, and that's, to be honest, the fact it was delivered and delivered well. And Hartlepool's Ulster, the Tall Ships races next year, we obviously must have went down well with them.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you. And how about you, Clive?
Well, as I said, I'm retired now, but I did 17 and a half years with the county council. And I think that what made me proud was we never had a single prosecution in all that time. So I think I made a difference, and that's what made me proud, really.
Lovely, thank you. And so I suppose moving on, Clive, can you know any key differences between working in the public sector versus the private sector? As you mentioned, you worked in both.
Yes, yeah. Decision making, I think, is the key. The private sector has a profit to look at, and it also has shareholders to satisfy, and so they don't hang around when it comes to making critical decisions. Public sector is driven by the political agenda, and unfortunately safety doesn't necessarily figure highly on a political agenda unless there is some media interest in it, or there's been a serious accident, or there's a bit of a wider crisis like COVID. So what I would say is that yeah, the big difference is the speed of decision making, and I don't know if Stuart would like to add anything to that.
Yeah, I've got to agree with what Clive says. There is challenges in the public sector dealing with the politics, whether these can be local and national, and you just pick up any newspaper or any the social media and see how quickly the mood can change.
Yeah.
So you have to be aware of that in the public sector, because it can have significant influence from finance through to where your priorities are. However, what I have found in the public sector is generally there's a clear ethos of the people who work there, that they're there to support the community as a whole. And whilst that can be challenging, the politics do get in the way, the vast majority of people we deal with on a day-to-day basis recognise that commitment to the community, and that's why they're in public service. So you do get challenges, you do get headlines, but in the vast majority of people are trying to better the circumstances. And I quite like that. I like that approach.
Oh, lovely. Thank you. So Stuart, do you have any tips for future leaders thinking about joining the public sector? Like, where might they start?
Well, fortunately, the public sector sometimes it gets a bad rep, but there is opportunities out there. And the one thing I would give sort of people like yourself and your colleagues is research the organisation you're going to. As we've said earlier in the earlier questions, is that the sector is diverse. So approach something that piques your interest. Quite often, I'm one of the health and safety practitioners use their skills regarding sales. If you don't really love health and safety, you're not going to sell it to a manager who's managing a whole load of activities.
Yeah.
So if you're picking a sector you're really interested in, choose it. And what I would say, don't be frightened of moving. Sometimes you will be working in a management team, for example, who health and safety is not their priority. And no matter how much you bang the door, they're just not interested, is move on. If you become jaded, like some of those managers might be, you're not going to help. And somebody else's approach might be better than yours, and you take the opportunity to go somewhere where you fit better.
Yeah.
And I think for future leaders in particular, where you are striving to drive an organisation's approach, I do think that take that opportunity to make sure you fit in the organisation.
Thank you. That was really great advice. Thank you. And Clive, how about you?
Yeah, I would echo what Stuart says there. The only thing I would really add is that the public sector gives you a much better grounding in health and safety than many other industries, basically because it's so diverse. We have highlighted that, yeah, there are some very focused and narrow areas, but in general, you're dealing with such a lot of different topics all the time that you really do expand your safety knowledge. The other thing I would say is that, as Stuart pointed out, staff are focused on delivering services, and trying to get your message across is not easy at sometimes. So if you get easily frustrated, then I wouldn't necessarily look at the public sector.
Oh, thank you both. Really great advice. And so for our final question, Clive, what other skills in addition to qualifications should future leaders focus on to be successful in the public sector?
Right, I've actually bullet pointed these, so because it
Great.
sounds like an interview question, really. Job description, yeah. So yeah, just picking up on the last point,
Patience.
good people skills.
Okay.
You need to be able to talk to anybody from a cleaner to a chief executive. So you need good communication and good presentation skills as well. Stuart pointed out earlier, being able to read and take the temperature of the organization you're working in, get to understand the political agenda, what is going on, what you need to focus on to make a difference. And also, don't be afraid of sowing seeds. Sometimes you might want to do things, but the organization isn't in the right place to do it. But if you wait a few years, it probably will be. So sowing seeds. How to interpret the law. I think anybody new to health and safety, they come in and they're armed with 100 pieces of legislation, and yeah, it's easy to lose sight of the fact that people who are managing don't necessarily want to, shall we say, follow exactly what the law says. And you need to understand what reasonably practical means and how it can be applied. The other thing is emotional intelligence. Know when you're beaten. Don't push points, because you only end up being upset yourself and rubbing other people up the wrong way. And patience. One of the things which when I got into management, somebody said to me is read The Art of War by Sun Tzu. Very much, I think health and safety in the public sector is about winning the war. It's not about winning individual battles. So look to the long term.
I love that. That's brilliant. Thank you. And how about you, Stuart?
I think Clive summed it all up there. I think that do not underestimate. You have to use your tactics differently. Some people want it very black and white. What's the law say? I must do that. Some people want a more nuanced approach, and some people you'll deal with are very, very experienced in managing risk. And what you don't want to fall into condescending those who are very experienced, and those who are inexperienced is almost nursemaiding them. You've really got to pitch your message to your appropriate audience, and that's the skill that comes with years of experience. And some people still struggle with it, and it's being able to look your colleagues in the eye and give them good, sensible, proportionate advice, and sometimes put yourself in their shoes with all the risks they have to manage and think, well, where should we prioritize our work? So if you're putting yourself in those managers' shoes, they'll appreciate the effort and support you're given. And I'd leave it like that, to be honest.
Thank you both for sharing your passion. You know, it's really clear that you really love what you do, and you're really well experienced in it. really inspiring, and I'm sure it will help a lot of new OSH professionals going into the sector.
Well, it's a pleasure supporting you. You're all working hard, and you're going into an industry that is crying out for new people with new ideas to develop health and safety culture across the piece.
Yes, I'd echo that. Yeah. So thank you, Cassie.
Brilliant. Thanks, guys.